Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Good? Yes? Awesome. Well, we have an amazing session lined up for you today. I know it's post-lunch. You're feeling sluggish. You're like, oh, I've just come to the nearest session that I could. But no, in fact, you came to the best session ever, right? You're going to talk about Foundry models. We're going to try to go over all the innovation that we have as part of this. And we have some awesome customer speakers that we're going to bring up as well. So look forward to an action-packed session. I'm going to fight against the lunch blues and make sure that you're actually able to come out of this with some new knowledge about all of the innovation that we have. So if I haven't met you before, I'm Naomi Moneypenny. I have the pleasure of telling you a lot about what we're doing across our amazing Foundry Models team. And so let's start off with just that evolution of what we're doing with the generative AI applications that we're seeing. Now, it has been a crazy last 3 years, right? Even if you've been in IT for a long time, and I see folks nodding, so yes, I do. I'm one of those speakers that expects audience participation, so be aware of that right now. So but one of those things I want to look at is understanding the last 3 years, right? Just the pace of change that we have had to look at, right? And just thinking, even if you've been in IT for a very long time, this pace has been insane. It's been incredible, right, to see what's happening. But there's even more innovation, and the way that we get to apply that innovation inside of our businesses, develop our applications as part of this, it's all thrilling to be part of this ride. So some of these key trends that we're seeing as part of this. Reasoning. Reasoning is coming to the fore. No longer is it about models that just speak. It really is about models that think before they speak and how they pair with other models that do similar. We've also seen this proliferation around agentic AI. And so we've heard agents so many times, obviously, during this conference, and it is that next wave that's coming. But underneath all of that agent AI has to be great models, right? Great structures, great reasoning capabilities, great specificity, and bringing all of that together. And then, of course, we've seen, obviously, the open source area. We'll talk a lot about that during the presentation as well. And then multimodal intelligence, right? It is not just about text. The world has started. It's not just about text. It is about images. It's about video. It's about being able to understand each and every concept we have in the world and make sure that we have inferencing that is suitable for that. And then, of course, small, efficient models. This is the cool thing here, right? We think about different kinds of models, right? Big models are great for generalizing. Small models are really great about specializing. And so you think about, the way that we might use these in our different applications every single day. We want to think about all of the different use cases that might be applicable, maybe even just in the real world. So oftentimes you might use a big model, for example, as kind of your large off-road SUV, if you will. And you might think about a small model as being kind of your daily driver, right? And think about how you optimize cost and efficiency and quality because of that. And so we'll talk about all of those different trade-offs as we go through this. Now, of course, we have some issues here, right, as part of developers. How many, hopefully folks are a lot of developers, I feel like, but please put your hand up if you are a developer and you're building agentic AI right now. Awesomeness, yes, awesome. So that helps me a lot. So understanding that, like many of our experiments, right, we do a lot of experiments, we try out a lot of things, but many of those don't get into production. So we see that there's challenges as part of this, right, there's deployment challenges. We've got to figure out what model selection. We're going to talk about that a lot today. We're going to think about complex workflows. We look at observability. How do I make sure these models are actually getting used? And then, of course, do I have the tools that I need? And, of course, that content safety that's epically important as part of all of this, too. Now, with Azure AI Foundry, we think about this as kind of being that platform, right? It is that secure platform of services. It helps to empower you, your enterprise, and all of the different kinds of customers that we have within there. And we think about this as kind of the way that we really can use the developer tools that you want to deliver all of these services. So I'm curious, users of GitHub in the room? Okay, all right, good to know. It's just good to know, see how people stack up. Folks who are using perhaps the Visual Studio, using Visual Studio, yeah, okay, a few folks there. And then Copilot Studio. Low code, no code, pro code, a little bit? Okay, a little bit of everything. People with 3 arms. No, okay, that's all good. All right, see that too. And then, of course, we have the Foundry SDK. Everybody loves that, right? So the cool thing is here, I get to be able to use this in the experience that I want to build with, right? I be able to get the power of everything that we're doing with Foundry and bring that into those experiences and to develop my AI as part of that. And then, of course, I have all these amazing services in here, right? We've got content safety, we've got the machine learning services, we've got search, we've got observability, all of that ladders into that amazing platform, as well as the agents and models that I have access to. So just an incredible set of pieces. Now, you might be wondering about ROI, right? Because that's oftentimes the reason we come to a conference like this. You've got folks saying, yes, I'm a developer, but my business users are asking for the return on investment, right? And so here's some great examples. And as I said, you're going to hear from a couple of these customers in just a few minutes as well. So I'm going to start off with Safer and Epic. So Safer and Epic, Safer is actually came out of Fidelity. And so when we think about that, we're actually customers inside of Microsoft too. So as Microsoft employees, all of our employees get access to Fidelity, and so Safer is a customer that came from there, so I'm kind of a customer of a customer of a customer, which is interesting to think about. And then with Epic, obviously powering some healthcare applications, we're also using them inside of Microsoft as employees. So again, customer of a customer is kind of a fun thing to think about, but you'll understand when you hear the example as well. And then we've got DraftWise, we've got Coca-Cola, so just seeing just the pure ROI that folks are getting as part of this, right? So we want to think about developer efficiency, right? That's important for us. How do we scale? We're always being asked to do more with less, and so this is a great way to do this. And then thinking through how are we actually measuring this inside of business results too. So the Atlas of AI. I think of all of you right now in this room as being amazing explorers, right? You are creating essentially new worlds. And so you need to have all of those components at your fingertips. How do I create those components, right? How do I think about developing my new world? I have a new agent stack, a new use case. I need to be able to engage all of the different parts that I need for AI componentry as part of this. And so with Foundry models, that's really what we're looking at, right? We're looking at that catalog that gives you the breadth across this. And so within that breadth, it's kind of amazing just to think about just all of the different ways we have. And so I'm going to start off, right? We're going to talk about Foundry Labs. Foundry Labs is kind of your source for experimental and research models. So if you want to see the latest and greatest, the cool state-of-the-art stuff, get to experiment and prototype with that, we've got Foundry Labs as part of that. Then we've got, next up from that, we've got Industry AI. And Industry AI basically allows you to be able to use these for your very specific business applications. So it's really trained on a set of data that's very specific and helps you to understand going deeper, maybe into healthcare, into finance, into life sciences, all of those different applications as part of your Industry AI pieces. Then we've got, of course, the scale models, right? We want to think about, the folks like Azure OpenAI. We've got those directly from Microsoft. And as you might have heard yesterday in the keynote, we announced that xAI Grok 3, we've brought Mistral, we've also brought Black Forest Labs, and we're bringing on Meta as well. So we're bringing all of those as being high scale, high value applications. And those can be consumed directly from Microsoft too. And then at the other end here at the spectrum, right, we've got all of the amazing open source and partner and community models. And so you see our expansion of Hugging Face and other relationships, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. And so the Foundry Atlas, essentially, right, what we have is that catalog that spans across all of this, and that's because you all, as explorers, as builders, you need all of those components. And we want you to be able to bring all of those out of Foundry too. We'll talk about the agent code samples. Those are available as well, right? We've seen a lot more directions there. And then, of course, using all of the tool sets as part of this too. So let's dive in and look at some of these pieces. Now, this is an eye chart, right? We want to do this on purpose, right? I want to show you the amazing breadth, right? And that's not everything that's in there, but there are, of course, 11,000 now. We've updated 11,000 different models that are part of what we're doing with Foundry. And so it's incredible to see, right? Just the depth and the breadth of here. And so one of the questions I've had over the last few weeks, and just even in the last couple of days at Build, I've had people coming up to me and saying, hey, Naomi, how do I figure out what model I use when, and which of these models is most useful for me? And so I've been thinking about this of hey, if you're new to the AI space, if you're thinking about, what kinds of models, what categories of models could be most useful for you, I'm going to use a Star Wars analogy to help illustrate that. And I'll take your feedback if it's useful as well. So I was thinking about this, you look at this dazzling array of models and incredible things that are out there. And so when you think about the Star Wars world, right, we have the Force, right? The Force is out there. And that Force helps us to understand everything. We know that we can put our intention into it, and things could go one way or the other. And so you can think about the Force as being foundation models, right? Foundation models actually help you to understand how to use them. You can use almost anything within them if you prompt them sufficiently, and they can actually be able to use it for good or for bad, basically, right? You can put almost any intention in there if you prompt it enough. Then you can think about maybe that character we have that's C-3PO, right? He's kind of the diplomat. He's fluent in 6 million forms of communication, right? And so he's really a generative model, right? That generative model, basically, he can communicate really well, but sometimes he lacks a little bit of that real-world grounding. And then we can think about maybe R2-D2 as kind of the retrieval augmented model. He's kind of got all of the answers, right? But he's plugged into all these external systems. He can give you the answers that you need, the data and apps in there too. And then the last example I'll give in here is Yoda. So we think about Yoda, we think about him as reasoning. And so you'll see some of the reasoning models that are mentioned out here. He thinks very deeply, he speaks and thinks before he speaks. He's really wise, and so when he does come out with something, it's really, really precise. And so it's a really great thought out way. And so when you look at these kinds of models, right, we've got examples across all of these. And so you might think about some of the GPT models, for example. You might think about DeepSeek as being kind of those reasoning models, right, that help you there. You've got things like Cohere that are essentially like retrieval augmented models too, and then being able to think about maybe specialist models, maybe it's kind of the Obi-Wan, if you will, the specialist, maybe those image models like Stability and Bria as part of that. Does that analogy help? I'm just curious. Yes, all right, I see a lot of head nodding. That is good, awesome, because I had this question a lot, and so looking through the dazzling array of things, it's working there. Awesome, so let's talk about model selection, right? So now you've got this dazzling array of models out there. We want to think about all of the different ways that you can explore it. And so with Model Router, this is the first step here. You might have seen this as part of our keynote demo yesterday. We showed that the Azure OpenAI models are there, but obviously we're going to expand this out to the ecosystem as well. And so it'll help you to route the model that's most appropriate here. We've also got model benchmarks, right, that really help us to understand, what these models are doing and how to trade those off. And Alex will demo those in just a second. We've got leaderboards in here too, and our templates that are part of this. And with this, we're able to really put all of this together, right? So you can actually find the right balance of reasoning, the intelligence, the quality, and the cost that is important to you to find the thing that is most useful for you in your use case. We have a whole set of areas here around experimentation. Can I actually switch between these models and check it out, right? And make sure that it's actually the thing that's most useful. And then obviously doing performance monitoring and ensuring that we have that model inference API as part of this too. So just a lot of goodness that's coming as part of this. So let's get into some demos. Lots of goodness to show here. So I'm going to invite Alex up to the stage and to show us a little bit about just the model catalog features.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I'm curious, Alex, please, let us know just a little bit about, how do I choose, right? What's the right model, right? Because there's just so much out there. But I'd love to know, like, how would you choose the best model? How would you evaluate those?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Naomi. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. So as Naomi mentioned, there are so many amazing models to choose from on Azure AI Foundry, but how do you pick the right one for your scenario? So I'm just curious, out of a show of hands, who here has ever had a challenging time picking the right AI model to use?
Almost everyone.
Quite a few folks. So let me show you some of the tools we have in Azure AI Foundry to help you make that decision. So I'm over here in Azure AI Foundry, and I've made my way to the model catalog. So the model catalog is the place for you to find the right model to build your AI agents, to build your AI applications. Now at the top here, we have announcements. So these are the newest models we've released. As Naomi mentioned, we released Grok 3 yesterday, so I highly recommend you to try that out. And then below that, we have a little bit about the model leaderboards. I'm going to come right back to this and show you those in depth. Of course, we have all the models in detail, and we can take a look at any individual model we're interested in by selecting the model card, reading about the model, and its various capabilities. In the model catalog, we have the ability to filter according to maybe the model provider, the industry, its capabilities, so on and so forth. And then if we want to be able to compare models, we can select this Compare Models button here. Now, this tool allows us to select the models of interest to us, and then we can go ahead and compare those models across a variety of metrics, such as quality and cost. Now, if I head back to the model catalog page and I select Browse Leaderboards, this is going to bring us to our model leaderboards. Now, the model leaderboards is a great place for you to look and see what are the most high-performing models across a variety of different benchmark metrics. Now, in this quality leaderboard at the top, we have what's called a quality index. This is an average of industry standard quality benchmarks, and we can see which models are the most performant across those benchmarks. If we want to try out the models and see how they work, we can go ahead and try those out in the playground. Now, down a little bit, we can see some other metrics, such as cost and throughput. Now, with cost, we obviously want to optimize there, so we can see which models are the lowest cost, And for throughput, we can see which models are the fastest. We also offer trade-off charts, so we can take a look at a bunch of different models across quality and cost, and we can see we want low cost, high quality, so that's gonna sort of put us in this most attractive quadrant, so models like DeepSeek R1, O3 Mini are gonna be very good there. We also can look at quality versus throughput or speed. We want high throughput, high speed. We also want high quality. We can see models like O3 Mini are really good there. Now lastly, let's say you have a very specific scenario you want to use your model for within your organization. Let's say you want to use the model for coding. We offer leaderboards by specific metrics. Again, these are industry standard benchmark numbers that we run the models on. So for example, with coding, we can see a model like O4 Mini is very high performant across those benchmark numbers. So these are some of the capabilities we offer here in the model catalog to help you pick the right model for your scenario. I'll pass it back to you, Naomi.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. So helpful? Yes? Okay, yes, all right, awesome, good. I want to see that folks are able to use these capabilities, trade off those charts, figure it out, prove that you're using the fastest model as part of this too. All right, let's talk a little bit about Foundry models themselves then. So obviously we have updated the catalog to be huge now, which is amazing, but I also want to help to separate out just the best way to figure out what's the model for you. And so we want to think about this, right? We want you to have the best access to innovation, but you also need predictability and production, use cases essentially, right? So being able to take that bet on production use cases. And so we want to offer you both of these things, right? We want to offer you the latest of the innovation and then be able to make sure that you can also take dependencies for big production use cases. So a couple of things here. One is that we have this set of models, as I mentioned, that are sold directly by Microsoft. And so that's the Azure OpenAI service that you're very familiar with. But we've also now expanded it, obviously, to Mistral and Black Forest Labs and Meta, and folks will talk about in just a second. And then we also have a set of models that are from our partners and community, right? And so these are amazing companies, many of which you saw listed on the other slides there, where we're actually taking the best of those industry models, we're taking the best of specialist models, and bringing those into the Foundry catalog too, as well as expanding out what we're doing with open source. And so we want to make sure you have all of these pieces together. And so when you can think about this, it's really about understanding there's a few models within this, right? So when we look at the ones that are sold directly by Azure, right, we can see here we've got the OpenAI area, we've got DeepSeek. We also have Grok as part of this new family we just announced yesterday. We have the Mistral AI as well. So Mistral has some amazing models out there. Their OCR model is pretty incredible. So it's one that I would definitely recommend looking at if you're processing a lot of paper, for example. And so we've got MetaLlama, some of the newest models there. And then we're bringing, of course, a Black Forest Labs, the Flux Pro model too. And so we're bringing all of those together. And we want to make sure you have flexibility, right, in how you deploy this, right? Sometimes you want a token-based consumption. Sometimes you want to make sure that you have provisioned throughput as part of this. And so we're making sure that you have those options too. And then it just simplifies it, right? You get one transaction. You're doing it directly with Microsoft. You can understand that relationship very easily. And then make sure that we have, of course, that reliability as part of this too. So with provisioned throughput, that is something Alex is going to demo in just a second. So if you have reserved capacity already, maybe you're using it with our Azure OpenAI models. I'm just curious. Show of hands if you have a reserved capacity. Some folks do, some folks don't. Okay, interesting. So I'm going to assume the rest of you use standard, so it's good to know. So with provisioned throughput, really that is kind of your reliable quota, if you will, the reliable capacity. We give a certain kind of scaling efficiencies as part of that too, and we want to make sure that you have that access to high concurrency. We also give you standard, right? Standard is what you do for global standard is basically that consumption basis, so you can use it by tokens, and you can use it there as well. And that makes it really easy. Like when you're evaluating a model, maybe you're using it with different use cases, you want to just test things out, and you can also do that too. So let's talk a little bit about how you might use the Azure OpenAI capabilities that you have and the quota that's part of that capacity, and then think about how we're actually going to then now apply that and have this able to be brought to you with DeepSeek too. And so we're going to talk about that one, but we're going to extend it also to the DeepSeek models, but also many of the other direct models too. So Alex, please show us a little bit about how I might get some of that capacity and working through different models with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Naomi. So we're bringing all these new models direct from Azure to you. And if you need predictable throughput, you can use flexible PTUs across your AOAI models, and also these models we're bringing direct from Azure. So let me go ahead and show you how you can do that. So I'm here back in Azure AI Foundry, and I'm going to go to the Management Center and take a look at quota. Now in this quota page, I can go ahead and select the capacity calculator, and I'm going to be looking at a specific model, in this case GPT-4o, that I'm going to use for my agent. I'll clear all the existing workloads I've already done, and then I'm going to add a new one for an agent that I'm building. Now, I'm going to expect about 20 peak calls per minute, and then I'm expecting about 2,000 average tokens in the prompt, and then about 1,000 in the completion. If I run this calculator, I'm going to need 50 PTUs to get the throughput I need for my agent. So now that I know how many PTUs I need, I'm going to go to GPT-4o in the model catalog, and I'm going to deploy it. When I deploy it, I'm going to select global provision throughput as the deployment option. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually select 50 PTUs to use for this deployment. This is going to give us the guaranteed throughput we need for our agent. I'll confirm this, and then I'll click Deploy. Now, after the model has deployed successfully, what we're going to do is actually navigate back to the Management Center and back to that quota screen that you just saw. In that place, we're going to see how many PTUs we have available, and then how many we've used and which deployments are using up those PTUs. Here we can see we have 300 total PTUs, and the deployment we just created for GPT-4o, we've given it 50 of those PTUs. Now let's say our agent is also going to use DeepSeek. Now let's say we've run the calculator, we know DeepSeek is going to need 100 PTUs, so we're going to deploy DeepSeek, and we're using the same PTUs here. They're flexible across all of these different models. So I'm going to select 100 PTUs for DeepSeek, confirm the pricing, and then create this deployment. This flexibility is really great because we can use these different models within our agents together. Now the DeepSeek model has successfully been deployed, and I'm going to go back one more time to the Management Center and take a look at that quota page. And what I'll see is that now 150 of our 300 PTUs are used, 100 for DeepSeek, and 50 for GPT-4o. So this is really great, so you can use those PTUs interchangeably. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you, Naomi.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. So I think it's really cool, right? Yes? Okay, all right, there we can use the same quota. I get to be able to use it across all these different models. These are amazing models that we've picked out from selected vendors, right? That are really helping you to scale, take production workloads, and then have, of course, this amazing Foundry provision throughput units, and be able to actually apply that to any of these models, including the OpenAI ones. So pretty awesome. All right, so let's talk about models that are coming from our partners and community too. So now we have over 11,000 models, woohoo! So it's awesome to see that, right? We're going to talk about all these different types that are coming in from Hugging Face, but we also have just within that catalog, right? We've got domain-specific ones, we've got multi-model models, we've got industry models, just incredible things. And so really across what we're doing with Azure AI Foundry, right? We really have the premier model providers that are in the catalog, things that you can use with your agents and be able to call within those, and then making sure that, of course, we have the breadth and flexibility, right? We want you to have ultimate choice to deploy it the way that you want it, ultimate choice in having the state-of-the-art models and being able to take dependencies on them, and then making sure, of course, that you have our reliability and our security that coming as part of that. We really want you to have the innovation that is the best of the ecosystem and be able to actually consume that in a safe and desired way. So let's talk about some of these cool models. Alex is going to give us some great demos of understanding just a little bit about the newness that we have in the catalog, and also to show you how you can use the playgrounds too to actually help to see all of this and be able to use it yourself very quickly. So Alex, take it away. Let's talk about a couple of different areas.
Awesome. Thank you, Naomi. So we've got some amazing models in our Azure AI Foundry model catalog, and I don't have time to show you all of them, but I can show you some of them. So what I'd love to do here is actually use a model that you're all pretty well familiar with at this point, GPT-4, and I'm going to ask GPT-4 to help me with this demo today. So I'm going to actually ask GPT-4 to generate a question that'd be great for a demo of a reasoning model. So let's see what kind of question it gives me. All right, so we've got a question here. A toy store has red, blue, and yellow toy cars. If there are twice as many blue cars as red cars, and 3 fewer yellow cars than blue cars, and there are 17 total, how many of each color does the store have? So a very standard reasoning type question. I'm going to go ahead and actually take this question and then go to another chat session. I'm in the playground section of my Azure AI Foundry project, and I'm going to go to a DeepSeek deployment that I've created. I'm going to go ahead and actually give DeepSeek this question and ask it to explain its reasoning. Now, DeepSeek is going to sort of think through what the answer to this question is. It's the chain of thought summary you can see here is actually the thinking that the model's doing to determine the answer to this question. And we can see here at the end what its final answer is and the reasoning that led to that. We can see here the answer is 4 red, 8 blue, and 5 yellow. So a pretty simple example of how you can use a reasoning model. Reasoning models are amazing for a lot of complex reasoning tasks, but just an example of one of those there. Awesome. Now I'd love to show you a model that we released on our platform yesterday from xAI, Grok 3. And I'm going to ask Grok 3 for some help with an upcoming vacation I'm going to take. So I have a prompt in my notepad here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this over. So let's say that I'm planning to take about a week off work and I live here in Seattle. I'd enjoy a week of diverse activities. I want to do some stuff that's exciting, some stuff that's relaxing, and maybe some stuff where I'll learn something new. I'm willing to travel, but I don't want to go too far, so only 100 miles or so. And let's say my budget is 500. So Grok, please plan out the week for me. So as Grok is thinking here, Grok is planning out this week of activities for me. So hopefully it's a fun week of some interesting things according to the constraints I've given it. So it's considering my budget, my willingness to travel a certain distance, what I want to do, and where I'm located. So here we can see a day-by-day breakdown of some things, going to Bainbridge Island, hiking Mount Rainier, some other items. We can see here at the end we have a budget breakdown and some notes. Now this is great, but let's say that I've actually changed my mind. I like what it's given me, but now I have some new constraints. So I'm going to say I changed my mind. I'd like to travel a bit further, let's say about 1,000 miles. And my budget has increased to $2,000. I'll tell it to please modify the week. And let's see what it gives me. So here Grok is thinking, it's coming up with its response, and it's gone ahead and changed what its recommendation for the week is. We can see that we're traveling a little bit here, so we're going to Portland. We're going to explore some history, culture in Portland. We'll go to San Francisco. We'll do some things there, et cetera, et cetera. Now let's say I want to change one more thing. Let's say I've been to San Francisco many times. I'd like to go somewhere else. Let's see where else it recommends taking me. All right, so we can see here that we're going to Vancouver instead, and then we're going to actually head over to Victoria, which is up there in BC, near Vancouver. Yeah, so pretty cool. I'll go with this last option here. Thanks, Grok. Alrighty, so lastly, I'd love to show you the first image-to-image generation model we have available on Azure. It's Stable Diffusion 3.5 Large, and it's a really amazing model for image generation and image-to-image capabilities. So I'm going to first ask it to generate an image of a bunny holding an egg. And this might take 5 to 10 seconds, so while this is generating, I'm just curious, out of show of hands, who here has a use case for image models or multimodal models with image capabilities within your organization?
Curious.
Quite a few folks, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome. So here we've got this wonderful image, very realistic looking, of a bunny holding an egg, which I suppose doesn't really make much sense, but could happen.
AI is for.
True.
Imagining new things.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do with this image is actually download it to my local machine, and then I'm going to go ahead and actually upload it as a prompt into this message that I'm going to go ahead and send back to Stable Diffusion 3.5 Large. And this time I'm actually going to give it the prompt to modify the image to be a bunny, a bronze pendant of a bunny holding an opal egg. And since I'm giving it this image I just generated as the input, it's going to use that image and then modify it according to the to the prompt that I've sent in. So what we're expecting here is a bronze pendant of the bunny in a similar format holding an opal egg. So we've gotten this image. So as you can see, the background is the same, and it's in the same kind of style, but it's been changed exactly according to the specifications I've given it. So pretty cool. So I'd love to show you just one more here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually upload the same original image I generated. But this time I'm going to use the prompt to modify it to be a carved wooden bunny, also holding an opal egg. So let's see what Stable Diffusion gives us this time. And hopefully you're thinking about maybe how you could use this model for something other than just bunnies holding eggs.
That's awesome.
All right, so here we've got a wonderful image of a carved wooden bunny holding an opal egg. So just some examples of some of the amazing models we have, and we'd love to have you try them all out and try all the ones we offer. So thank you so much. Back to you, Naomi.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you. Awesome. So it's amazing, right, to see all these models in action. So let's talk about how we're expanding out our collection in Hugging Face and then also using some amazing optimized models with NIMS. So for that, I'm going to bring Tina up to the stage, and she's going to introduce our amazing healthcare customer as well. And so we'll see a little bit more about how we're expanding with scale and being able to help you run your large production use cases. Tina, welcome up.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Hey, everyone. So one of the things we're super excited about this build is how we have expanded our collaboration with Hugging Face. Now we have over 110K models, trending models from Hugging Face on Foundry. This is across an expanded set of task types from text, audio, and image use cases. Now, as we bring all of these model choices to you, we do this with security first principles. So all of these models and inference code is scanned by Hugging Face, and all of these are free from vulnerabilities. Hugging Face will also continue to maintain these models. Now, the text generation inference and the text embedding inference enabled models are going to be deployed with OpenAI compatible APIs, so you can use them with our Azure AI Inference SDK. You can easily swap endpoints from the various models that are available on Foundry platform, evaluate and pick the best one for your use case. What's next for this partnership? Now, I think we'll all agree that the open source landscape is shaping faster than ever before. And Hugging Face has been the default launchpad for all of the model developers to push out their AI innovations. This is where we're partnering with Hugging Face to bring in day one access for Foundry customers for latest models from top model providers. We're also going to be tapping into community signals on Hugging Face Hub to bring in the most trending models from Hugging Face. Now, as we do this, we're going to be expanding to even more task types, unlocking more for our customers across 3D generations, video generations, time series forecasting, and even more. Now, one of the main focuses for us as part of this expanded collaboration is making it super easy for our enterprise customers to use these Hugging Face models within their secure private networks. Now, we are thinking beyond just models. As Naomi spoke about how we are looking at evolving the model catalog to an atlas of AI, we're looking to leverage the broader open source AI ecosystem of Hugging Face Hub and bring in the agent frameworks and toolings from Hub. So stay tuned for a lot more exciting updates on this space soon. AI is now table stakes, so we are seeing a lot of our enterprise customers move from just innovating with AI to now sort of seriously focusing on how they can optimize their AI workflows. Now, this is where we've partnered with NVIDIA to bring in their NIMs. Now, what are NIMs? These NVIDIA inference microservices are essentially pre-built containers built by NVIDIA for a bunch of foundation models from community, models that are developed by themselves, as well as a lot of customized AI models as well. All of these models are going to be pre-packaged and have all the CUDA and TRT LLM optimizations baked in with Triton Inference and so on. All of this containers can run on NVIDIA GPUs, so this full stack acceleration by NVIDIA provides improved performance and lower total cost of operations for all the enterprises out there on NVIDIA accelerated infrastructure on Azure. You don't have to worry about bringing your own NVIDIA AI Enterprise license. We are enabling a seamless purchase flow within Foundry for you to be able to purchase these NIMs and deploy with a single-click deployment. These NIMs expose an OpenAI API specification, so it's very easy for you to use these NIMs within your deployment frameworks, as well as use it and consume it with the Azure AI Inference SDK. Now, all of this goodness with enterprise support by NVIDIA, which can support your production workloads as well. Now, you can use these deployments, these NIM deployments on AI Foundry and connect them with tools and use them with Azure AI Agent Service and build accelerated agent workflows. Before we see a lot of this in action, I have a small sizzle video that I'd like to play. That was cool, wasn't it? It's got a nice ring to it as well. So we're going to dive right into the demo. Awesome. So I'm within Azure AI Foundry, I'm with the project. I can now discover NIMs within NVIDIA collection within the model catalog. So I'm going to quickly jump into the collection. This collection today houses a bunch of foundation models from NVIDIA and a set of NIMs, which are ranging from NIMs for a lot of foundation models from like Llama and Mistral, as well as a lot of BioNeMo models that can be used for drug discovery use cases as well. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and try and deploy the Llama 3.3 NeMo, Nemotron Super NIM microservice. This was recently announced by NVIDIA at GDC. A couple of things to note here is these NIMs that are made available on Foundry by NVIDIA come directly out of the production branches of the NVIDIA AI Enterprise Software Suite. And so these are regularly patched for vulnerabilities by NVIDIA, and you can see the last updated time here for you to see when it's time for you to redeploy. If you want to learn more about how NVIDIA is maintaining these containers, you can click on the Learn More link here to learn more about it. Now we're going to dive right into deploying the model. As I click use this model, I'm going to get a deploy wizard, which is going to ask me to select the VM instance that I want to deploy this NIM on. Well, NIMs are fast, but somehow the internet connection today is not. All right, so this is the deploy wizard that we have. And I'm going to be able to select one of the NVIDIA GPU-accelerated Azure VMs from the dropdown here. I'm going to select the NC80H100 machine for this demo. And then I can also customize my deployment for the number of instance count, set an endpoint name, et cetera. I'm going to keep the instance count to 1. And so this is where I get to know what I'm going to be paying for this deployment. Now, all the information that you're seeing in this pricing wizard is directly populated from the Azure Marketplace offer that NVIDIA publishes as part of NVIDIA NIM. And so you're going to, as we spoke about, like NIMs are available from the NVIDIA AI Enterprise license, which have a 90-day trial and a $1 pricing per GPU per hour. And this is a GPU-agnostic price, NVIDIA GPU-agnostic price. And so this 90-day trial today applies to all the NIMs that are available on Foundry, and it starts from the time you subscribe to that offer. And once the trial's over, you start paying NVIDIA directly the $1 per GPU hour. And you can see the aggregated surcharge that you will be paying for this deployment, which is essentially a function of the number of GPUs that you have in the VM that you've chosen in the previous step. Now, in addition to the price you will be paying NVIDIA for their NIM software, you will be paying Microsoft for Azure Compute Capacity, where you will be deploying this NIM on. And this is where your VM reservations are going to be honored as well. Now, you can review the Azure Marketplace terms, the license agreement, acknowledge them, and click Deploy. This is going to take around 15 to 20 minutes to deploy. And so in the meanwhile, I'm going to just, OK. I'm going to walk you through one of the endpoints that I created just this morning within the same project for the Llama Nemotron Super NIM. So this deployment overview essentially provides you an overview of a bunch of things like how much you will be paying for the NIM, inclusive of the free trial as well. Yeah, so this is where you see it. This number dynamically changes based on when you load this page and which day of the trial period you're in. You can also see that they expose a very nice start completions API, and I'm going to go ahead and test this reasoning model with a prompt of a seating arrangement at the dining table of a family reunion. I'm saying two sisters do not want to sit next to each other. They just had an argument, but they want to sit next to the grandmother. The uncle is hard of hearing and needs to sit between two of the loudest talkers. Note, I am not saying who the loudest talkers are. And I'm asking the model to arrange them accordingly. And so you can see the model generates a thinking response. It generates what the constraints are present as a part of the prompt, what assumptions it made, because I told the model that the sisters just had an argument. It's assuming that the sisters are the loud talkers. But it also considers the case when the sisters are not the loud talkers and comes up with the proposed arrangement visualization for both the cases as well. And so with this, we come to the end of this demo. And I'd like to invite Drew from Epic. Epic has been one of the early customers of NIMS on Foundry. And Drew is going to talk a little bit about how they're using NVIDIA NIMS for their generative AI journey at Epic.
Great.
Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Drew McCombs, developer at Epic, and I lead our cloud and analytics teams at Epic. And in March, we had announced that we started looking at NIMS as part of our platform as we're looking at clinical summary validations. But first, I wanted to get a little sense of kind of what we're doing and what our customers are seeing from outcomes in the generative AI space. And a lot of times we like to start here when we think about our software development at Epic. And this is really a sense of what our architecture is. Whenever we look at new applications, new technology, things like AI, how do we make sure that we keep the patient at the heart of everything that we do to provide the best care for them? And we're constantly looking across our application teams kind of in 4 key areas as we're developing new features. First and foremost is how do we get patients healthy and keep them healthy with everything we do? Then how do we also help clinicians deeply engage with their patients and also have a very fulfilling career supporting their patients? And this is all only possible when the back office is healthy and we're able to help our customers stay financially viable to pay for all these services. And with all that in place, we are then always looking what's next. What can we do to advance medicine around research, bringing more data together to do genomics research, and much more. And there's a lot that AI can do to help along each of these. Now, as we look across healthcare, it's a pretty complicated ecosystem, and we're continually looking at how do we connect more of it together. So as we look at keeping the patient at the heart of everything, we're looking at connecting directly to payer organizations so we can speed up care delivery with electronic e-authorizations, bringing together labs into the network so that we can quickly get information to help drive new treatment decisions, or help connect patients when they're at home, when they're caring outside of the standard healthcare ecosystem. And I guess a quick show of hands, how many of you use MyChart today? Got it in your pocket? Yeah, just almost the entire room. So you all are also connected directly into this. And so all of this information is coming together to provide the best care for our patients. And there's really a lot of opportunity for AI to help across this entire set of information. Now, if we kind of step back, we've been looking at generative AI since really the beginning of ChatGPT really went large in late 2022. We dove in really quickly. We went live with our very first production use case, which was drafting responses for a clinician to respond to patient messages all the way back in April of 2023. We quickly rolled out an agentic use case on top of our Cosmos database called Sidekick. And I'll go through a quick demo of that in just a minute. And we've been rapidly rolling out a ton of new other use cases that are helping with note summarizations, clinical summarization, drafting notes, and also helping in the back office from a coding perspective to make sure that we can help the organizations get all the revenue that they can. And we've been rolling out over 120 different use cases, and it's been great to see the organizations go live. We've got over 374 groups live today, and we're also rolling this out across the globe. So we're in many different countries across the world, and one of the things that's been great with Azure and using Azure Foundry, AI Foundry, is that we can load this information, we can run all this processing in the countries where it's needed, because there's a lot of privacy regulations and requirements in healthcare data. So that's been incredibly helpful. Something else that's been great to see is our customers doing validated research on each of our use cases, whether it's validating that the clinical summaries that are being created are useful, and many times providers actually prefer them. And then also working with groups like University of Wisconsin, who's just down the road from us, building research to be able to say, how do we do clinical summary validation at scale as we continue to roll out a lot of these use cases? And this is actually where we're using NVIDIA NIMs to begin with, to be able to take Mixtral, roll it out into our AI Foundry across our customers, and start validating those clinical summaries very quickly. Now, one outcome that I'm super excited about at the Christ Hospital in Ohio, they recently published this information about how, compared to the US average of 46%, diagnosing patients with stage 1, stage 2 cancer from secondary findings and radiology results, they're actually accomplishing it at 69%. So it's a lot more patients that are getting direct care because they're able to test more quickly. And so I'll show you a quick demo of this. So once again, I'll show Sidekick, which is an agentic experience on top of Cosmos, which is a research database we built in partnership with many of our customers. It's got over 300 million de-identified patient records and 17 billion clinical encounters loaded into it. And we'll see an analyst and a researcher starting to use the system. And Sidekick is built on top of this analytics stack and can start out with allowing folks to ask just clinical questions. A lot of times when researchers are taking a look at a new study, they have some questions about how they might want to approach it. Then they're able to really quickly ask questions of the data, go from 300 million down to just around 8,000 patients, start breaking it down based on age, potentially by demographics, looking at maybe ordering patterns, and then once that's done, they can also summarize it. So Sidekick will actually build a summary that that researcher could share with their colleagues to see what they think of what they're finding in the data. And then the other interesting thing with Sidekick is you can ask it to say, hey, what else should I be asking? So you can prompt it to also say, here's some other questions I may want to look at this data set that I might want to do some follow-up research or work with some colleagues on. So it's really making it very easy to work on top of this very large data set. And this is all possible because under the covers, we've been building our own agent platform that is bringing together all of the data that is happening inside of the care setting. So we're building our own healthcare agent that works across a lot of these different data modalities. Allows us to do reasoning on top of it and directly integrate it back into all of the different applications that we are creating. Now, as part of that, we're also building very specialized agents within it. Things like scheduling agents to make it easy to interact with the patient to deal with their schedule. Doing all those different clinical summarizations so we can aggregate the data and surface those to clinicians. Marry that up with known knowledge bases to help them with decision making and be able to do that across a lot of different types of modalities, whether it's scanned documents, DICOM, and others. And then we bring it right back into those experiences that they're doing today, whether it's the chart or into MyChart. And at the end of the day, under the covers, we're deploying all of this on top of Azure, and primarily because it gives us a very secure environment that we can deploy across the globe and allows a very small team of mine to be able to manage these across every single one of these deployments. And it's giving us the option to also bring together the other core pieces that we're building on top of, which is Azure Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, that allows us to bring together a lot of multimodal data, near real-time data streaming out of the clinical system and crossing across a lot of the unstructured data. And then Azure Foundry, we're leveraging OpenAI a lot today and really excited about looking at some of the NIMS capabilities directly integrated. And we can roll this out in the same infrastructure that we have reaching our customers across the globe. So pretty excited about this. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all the interesting work that Epic has been doing for clinical care. You've been one of our early customers for NIMS and Foundry, and we've spoken a lot about how we want to enable more and more model choice for our customers. How do you think the addition of NVIDIA NIMS has played into that?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, it was great that we were able to move quickly with a lot of the OpenAI models and scale out the new versions, and then seeing all the new models that are coming on NVIDIA NIMS and some of the performance gains we're hoping to get from that. I've been very excited to see how we can select through all those new models.
Yeah. And then you've evaluated NVIDIA NIMS since the launch at GDC. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how they've performed for your workloads?
Yeah, we've been seeing really good performance out of our initial deployment of Mixtral. So we're really excited to be able to do that for a lot of our clinical note processing and do that in large batches in real time with our customers. The other thing we've noticed is a lot lower latency for responses. So we're super excited to look at it for some low latency response needs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to continuing to work with you as you scale NVIDIA NIMS for your workloads. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Naomi.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tina and Drew. Cool, huh? Seeing all of this come to life with an amazing customer example. So a couple things that I just wanted to mention really quickly. So the Foundry Labs piece of this, we have an entire session on this. Please go look at this if you're interested in experimental and research models. We've got a cool little video here to explain what it does. Awesome. So lots of goodness there. So please experiment with those models. Of course, we have some amazing new industry models too. So you can read this slide at your leisure afterwards. But understand drug discovery, protein synthesis, all kinds of amazing things working with diagnostic accuracy as well. And so you can see some of the showcased models as part of this too. So if these are use cases that are important to you, please do check them out. Now, last but very not least, and all the way from Ireland, we have an amazing demo from our folks at Safer. So I'd love to invite Jono up to the stage, please, and help us out and tell us all about how you're doing amazing agent creation at Safer. Hello.
Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
Most people call me Jono. But let me tell you a bit about Safer. So Safer was born inside Fidelity Labs.
I think your mic, hang on. Is your mic on? Let me just, sorry, do you do this? There we go. You're good.
Cool. Okay. Oh yeah, that's.
You have to say it all again now. I'm sorry.
Which bit?
Hello.
Hi, I'm Jono. I am the CTO of Safer, and I'm thrilled to be here with everybody. Let me tell you a bit about Safer. So Safer was born in Fidelity Labs, as Naomi mentioned earlier. Now, what's Fidelity Labs? Fidelity Labs is essentially the incubation unit of our venture studio. Incubation unit / venture studio of Fidelity Investments. And our remit really was to pretty much to take financial regulations. It's a very straightforward remit, very broad. Take financial regulations and create AI models and AI agents and make them available to customers. So how is this beneficial to our customers? Essentially, there's two major benefits. The first one really is regulatory risk, helping them manage their regulatory risk. And the second one really is helping them to manage a manual process more efficiently. So there are two kind of key things. So Safer has built many, many models, and these models are available at scale in models as a service. We have our own workflow, basic workflow, but of course, we can integrate with your workflow. We also, our plan really is to make sure that our models and our tools are where the content creators are. So Office 365, for example, we have plugins for 365. Adobe Gen Studio, we have plugins for Adobe Gen Studio. We have plugins for Google Workspace, and we have plugins for Figma. So we're trying to get our plugins and add-ins wherever our content creators are. Of course, we have a load of developer APIs that we use. Any modern application has those. So let's just go through the problem. What's the problem, really? In financial services, there's a heck of a lot of documentation created. You can see some ideas, some there. See, you've got emails, for example. All of these things have to go through regulation, compliance officers, prospectuses, underwriting documentation. So everything has to go back and forth with a compliance officer, and it's tedious and very involved. And with the advent now of generative AI, there's a heck of a lot of content that's being created that's making it very, very difficult for the compliance officers. So what we're trying to do is, or what we are doing, is that we have created models to help those compliance officers now rebalance it so that the compliance officers now have models that they can use. And where's the?
Sorry, keep talking.
Oh,
You're good.
all right. So Safer is solving this basically by making these models available. These models, in seconds, can go through a paragraph of text and suggest alternative text, suggest alternative ways of making this content more balanced and more compliant. And the compliance officers are using these models, to kind of combat all the generative AI that's been created. So let me take you through a Safer Communications compliant agent that was released for build. And the actual code for this is available in Foundry code samples. If you want to take a look at it, you can come up to me afterwards and I can tell you where to find it. So essentially, this is the agent playground, and I'm going to show you a demo now of this actually in action. So this takes non-compliant, in this case, there's 3 non-compliant sentences there. I guarantee you make loads of money. We are confident that we can beat the S&P 500 and also invest in Bitcoin to get rich fast, okay?
Always.
So,
Probably not compliant.
and so the thing to know here is that, so when you're creating an agent, you need to have an agent orchestrator. Now, the agent orchestrator we picked was GPT-4 Mini. And we just picked it really because it's efficient, it's small, but the most important thing is it has function calling. Now, most new modern LLMs, as you probably know, have function calling. That's the key. So we used 2 tools down the bottom that are highlighted. Those 2 tools use models that we deployed into AI Foundry last year in November, December. And those 2 models, we'll go through them in a sec, but essentially, we want that prompt, and the prompt is very straightforward, very simple prompt. Given the following paragraph, check it for compliance, having a risk level of low. And we'll take a look at the model in a sec to see what that means. And then for any sentences that are non-compliant, please obtain a suggested compliant sentence and rebuild the whole paragraph. Very, very, very simple instruction to give an agent. But the magic is that it's going to use those 2 tools on the bottom. So let's have a look at that in action.
Awesome.
Okay. Oh, got to run it. All right, so let's get that out of the way so you don't see that. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at this. So these are the 3 sentences we have. So we're going to take this and we're going to send it to the agent, and the agent is going to use the 2 tools and come back with a compliant paragraph. Real simple. Okay, it's kicked off there now. One of the first things to notice is that, which is good, is that you can see on the left there, it's looking for a reference to use an OpenAI API. So we know at least it's using one of the tools. And when it's finished, we'll take a look at that in detail. So there's a little audit history we can have and see exactly what happened. So it's generated, and I paused it there, sorry. So there's 2 tools, and here is the response. So those 3 sentences our agent has basically created these 3 longer, more balanced sentences. I'm not going to read it out, but basically they look pretty good. I'll read out one of them. Bitcoin that's the longest one. Bitcoin can be a potential investment option for those seeking growth, but like all investments, it carries risk and may not always yield high returns. Right, very good. That is correct. So this is the way you can take a look in detail. It's an audit history, basically, of what the agent did. So our agent, the one we created, we're hoping that it does two things, really. The first thing it does is going to call one of our tools, and then the non-compliant sentence is going to call the other. So we can pretty much see that it did that. So the first thing it called is the isParagraph-compliant tool that we created. And this is the one, and I'll show you in the model card and the model catalog in a sec. It's the one where you send the paragraph and it comes back and it tells you all the sentences that are non-compliant and why they're non-compliant. And then these other ones go off and, hey, generate a, here, I'll just stop there for a sec. So I'm telling that one there highlights the invest in Bitcoin to get rich fast. And then it says, invest, it's what we just said earlier, but like all investments, it carries risk. Okay, so that's the last call that it made, so we're good. So the last thing it does now, it puts it all together into a single paragraph. Okay, so let's have a look at so remember we had those two tools. So we basically have 4 models in the AI Foundry model catalog that were deployed. So if you do a search for Safer, you'll be able to see them. And those, and we'll talk about those. We'll take a look at each one of the model cards and see what it does. So we have 4. The 2 we're really interested in: Safer Language Suggestion and Safer Retail Marketing Compliance. So in Safer Retail Marketing Compliance, it essentially is a model for financial services, specifically trained for financial services. FINRA 2210 specifically rules. And what it will do is, this is looking at it in the model card. The model card in AI Foundry shows you the request responses you can send in, because once you deploy a model from AI Foundry, you get a REST API. So we can take a look at that REST API now. I'll just stop for a sec. So there you can see that the REST API is there. You have a text that goes in, which is, in our case, a paragraph. And you indicate a risk level. A risk level, in this case, for this model, is low, medium, or high. And this model will return a JSON array there of findings. And each element in that is basically a non-compliant sentence. And it'll actually have, reason why a non-compliant sentence. Okay, so I'm going to just spin it on a bit because we're running out of time. But that's the Safer Retail Marketing Compliance. Then we'll go to the language. Let me just show you this. This is the Swagger URL that you get when you deploy the model. It's really important to use that. That will be what you use to create your tool. One of the only gotchas in there is you got to make sure you have the servers field in there. This is just an example of executing it. I got to spin on, guys. Sorry, we're running out of time. This is the other model response. Is where we send a paragraph of text with low, and it comes back with the 4 non-compliant sentences. So I think we're kind of out of time, right? So
it's really great to see it, right? This really helps us to bring it together, right? We've got models in the catalog. You've been able to create these agents. You're doing all the tool calling in here too. So I'm curious, Jono, how long did it take you to build these agents?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, and it's surprisingly how simple it was, to be honest. That agent itself, just to construct, because we constructed it using the user interface, not the SDK. We just gone straight in, create an agent. The prompt worked first time. Yeah. We created the 2 tools. The 2 tools are easy to create. You just give it a name and a description, and you put your Open API 3 specification in there, and you just say servers going to wherever you're going, where you deployed your model, and that's really it, and that's it.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
very, very simple.
So just within a few hours, basically. Yeah.
A few hours. It was
Incredible.
very, very straightforward, I have to say.
Incredible. Well, it's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you all for attending. We hope you got some great information out of this session. So thank you.